In the late 1960s, the legendary fell walker Alfred Wainwright hiked through this village of Feizor in the Yorkshire Dales. And then in 1970, he published a book, Walks in Limestone Country. And in Walk 18, he leaves a mystery for future antiquarians, future YouTube antiquarians. Walk 18. In that walk, he refers to a 2,000-year-old structure that he discovered on the limestone hills above this village. And that's what we're going to be investigating this week. We're going to be having a look at Alfred's puzzle from the 1970s, see if we can find it, to see if we think it is actually from antiquity. As attractive as Feizor is as a village, I've quickly left it behind. I'm filming this at the time when there's still a little bit of this sort of rioting stuff going on here in the UK. And whilst there have been no incidents in Feizor to date, I did sense a little bit of a tension around Elaine's tea room. So I just thought it best to get out into the hills as quickly as possible. And before we get on with our investigation, just to put Feizor well and truly behind us, something on the name, Feizor. I bet, like me, you assumed that that was a Nordic name, a Viking name. Sounds like it, doesn't it? But as far as I can tell, it isn't. It's probably a Norman conqueror, Feck's land. Watch that cowpat. Now, if we're fortunate enough to find Wainwright's puzzle from Walks in Limestone Country, we need to get familiar with these dry stone walls. Now, I don't want to get boring about this. I know some people are obsessed and even have dry stone wall charts. We're not doing that. But I just want you to take a look at this very classic example here of a dry stone wall in this part of the Yorkshire Dales, probably constructed during the enclosure periods between the late 18th century and the very early 19th. I mean, it's undoubtedly well built, but note that it is sort of thin, sort of single layer, well, a couple of layers of stones at most, and also note the height of it as well. Try to concentrate and remember that with those YouTube attention spans. You'll probably gather from that then that what we're looking for is some sort of wall. And what Wainwright called it was the Celtic wall. And he claimed to have found something that was quite unusual, quite unique, and he believed that it dated back at least 2,000 years. Well, he might be the expert on fell walking and writing pictorial guides, but I think if we find it, we'll see what an expert amateur antiquarian has to say about that. I mean, horses for courses and all that. Now, it's at this point where, to find our Alfred Wainwright puzzle, we have to leave this public right-of-way and hack on up here, which, interestingly, back in his day would not have been the open access that we enjoy today, so possibly he was trespassing. Woo! Now, I do know that the feature, or a feature, is there because I had a look at the old Google Earth thing. So this is the direction we've got to head in order to find it. And as the storm clouds threaten, there it is. I give you Wainwright's Celtic wall. Here she is, there we have the Celtic wall, Wainwright's Celtic wall. What does he say? He reckons it's 2,000 years old. He proposes that it's either a defensive structure for a settlement down there in the valley, or that it is a burial mound. It's sat on top of a barrow. That's all he says. It's not a scheduled ancient monument. Very little work has been done up here. Let's have a look and see what we think. Now, I guess the cynical of you out there are screaming at your devices, telling me that this is just a fragment of a dry stone wall where once there was a wall line. Take a look at the footage. It really is quite different. 5 feet high, 5 feet wide, 65 feet long. And I'm doing that in old money because I took those measurements from that old curmudgeon at Wainwright. There is no indication to me that this carried on. The ends of the wall, as you can see, are neatly squared off. It looks to me like that's how it was always built. And then if you have a look at the actual stonework, to me, that is weathered in situ. This weathering has happened where this wall it stands to this day. Now, I will acknowledge that there is another smaller fragment in less good condition a little way to the east. It has similar width, similar dimensions, but it's tumbled down. Looking at the ground, I don't think this ever carried on. I don't think this was linked, these two walls. So if this wall is some form of mighty funerary monument for an important chieftain hereabouts, I propose that the smaller disjointed fragment is another funerary monument. I don't really hold with this idea that Wainwright put forward that it was in some way defensive. I don't get how that would really work. And if you look at the main Celtic wall, there is a mound. It clearly is on some form of mound. So my sense is, and I do have a strong sense that I'm right about this, is that this wall is marking a burial mound for someone pretty important. I will just address the other elephant in the room, which is this idea that it might have been constructed as a wind shelter. There are arguments for that and arguments against that. I have seen people saying it's in the wrong place in terms of the wind directions. That's not true. I'm sheltering behind it today and it's doing a great job. And on Google Earth, you can see sheep sheltering. So it does provide some shelter. But it doesn't feel like a wind shelter to me. It's a monumental piece of work just to give some sheep the shelter from the wind. So I don't think it's that. Here on the western side, there's possibly the indication of some continuation at some point, but I'm not entirely sure. I'll just try and give you a sense of that, the relationship between the wall and the disjointed bit over there. Here we've got the eastern end of the wall there, and there is the tumbled down fragment over there. Slightly sort of off-light. It could have joined up, but I'm not convinced about it. Now, the wall is on a raised ridge. It's sort of effectively on the top of this escarpment. But I think there you can see that it's on a mound on top of that ridge. It is quite significant. So you'd have a classic barrow, but you'd have this marker along the top of it. This incredible Celtic wall. If you've followed this channel for any period of time, you will know that I don't really do the old mumbo jumbo thing, but I have an admission to make. Maybe I'm changing as I get older. I have felt an emotional connection with this place. At one point, I even had a sort of tear in my eye, but I think it must have been this wind. It must have blown a bit of the moss off the top of that wall and gone into the corner of my eye or something. But I do feel something here. I feel something. Can't really describe what it is. I'm sure some of you that are that way inclined will have some opinions on that. Now, it's always hard trying to do this on camera, but I'm going to give it a try. So I'm stood on the footings of the fragment, the wall fragment here, and they extend to here. There's no real sign of them beyond that. The Celtic wall on top of its barrow is over there, so it's not aligned. Now, obviously, if it was joined up once, there could have been a kink, but it clearly isn't aligned. This is 5 feet wide as well. I can't tell, obviously, if it was ever 5 feet tall, but it looks very similar, albeit it's not in good condition in the same way the other one is. So my idea is that if that is indeed an unusual form of barrow decoration, then this is either marking the approach to that, or possibly is on a small mound, possibly there's a relative here. And then finally, while we're up here, I'll run from the end of the fragment wall and stand up here on what I think might be another barrow. We might therefore have 3 funerary monuments on this ridge. So on this barrow that I may have identified here, and then over there you've got the fragment of the wall, and then the main Celtic wall is over there. I'm going to have to reluctantly leave this place that I have a strange emotional attachment. I'm going all mumbo jumbo. I think the next test is I need to head off over there to the other side of the valley, the scar, and see what the view is like, because we do know, I'll walk down the barrow to show you how steep it is. We do know that these were meant to be visible, weren't they? And maybe that's what this wall is doing, adding to that visibility. Oh, got something in my eye again. Sorry about the wind noise. I've jumped onto the GoPro. The weather is starting to close in, so I need to get a move on to get over to the other side if we're going to get a view. Am I getting emotional about a wall for sheep? Let me know in the comments down below. I know you will. It's just disappearing out of view now. Up there. Goodbye, Celtic wall. On the way down, I found this enclosure wall that has collapsed. And I think if you look at that, you can see how really very different the construction type is and the weathering. Do forgive the lack of continuity here. The weather is coming in, so my stuff's over there. Don't worry about it. I know you do. I'm on the other side of the valley, the other side of the scar, and sure enough, very prominent up there, you could see the Celtic wall. You can even see the fragment as well to the east. So whoever built it meant it to be seen, whether that was to commemorate some form of Celtic chieftain or to let the sheep know where they can get some shelter. Our barrow, if indeed it was a barrow, had a great view. That smear set scar on the left there, and the little pimple that you can see is the mighty Penny Ghent. And we'll have to do a video about the name of that one day, won't we? I'm back in the studio now, and as you can see from this Dazcam footage, my phone basically, the rain set in shortly after I'd filmed that last bit, and I couldn't be bothered to do any more that day. I have added a rain effect, by the way, to the Dazcam footage because it didn't really show up very well. Now, if you look at this sort of map overlay, I'll mark the position there of the Celtic wall, and that you'll see on the same ridge line alignment, the Ordnance Survey have something that they call an enclosure. Well, it's not an enclosure. It was considered by 1970s surveyors to be a Bronze Age ring cairn, so a funerary monument dating back to the Bronze Age. And then further south on this upland plateau, there are other prehistoric funerary monuments, not least of all the Apron Full of Stones, which we'll take a look at one day. If you really like this video, I mean like it, click like. And this all led Harry Spate, do you remember him? No? It led him to label this area the Field of the Dead. Now, if Gus from the New Time team can have a virtual museum, then so can WC21 UK Productions Limited. I'm off there now to the virtual museum to put my head on the line and let you know my decision about the Celtic wall. How do I get in this? Welcome to the WC21 Virtual Museum. Pretty cool, eh? I'm going to put my neck on the line now. And yes, the Celtic wall is going in here. I think it is some form of prehistoric barrow with an unusual marking. I know I'm going to get crucified in the comments down below. That just leads me to thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next week. Like, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. See you next week. How do I get out of this thing? Oh. Oh,